Welcome to another episode of What Teachers Have to Say. I'm Jake.
And I'm Nathan. And today we are going to be talking to two incredible educators, Marisa Thompson and John Carippo.
Great episode.
World-class educators that we had a wonderful conversation with. And the trend between them, really, we started out, we wanted to have an episode that kind of wrapped up the year, roses and thorns, but it grew into something so much bigger than that once we started talking. And it it went off the rails a couple times. But the common thread here is that here at the end of the year, we are often reflecting on what could we do better next year, right? I feel like that's a universal teacher experience where you look back at your notes, you look back at your lessons, you remember things that went well, you remember things that didn't go quite so well, and you need to change them in some way.
You light those on fire.
Right. You light
Burn
them
your
on
notes.
fire. But it's so much bigger than that in some ways. Like we tend to just focus on our classrooms, but we forget that all of our classrooms are really interconnected with the students that are coming into our class next year, from the students that we've sent on their way into new learning experiences for next year. And so talking with Marisa and John really kind of opened up this window with two educators that are doing work across the nation in multiple classrooms, and tying those threads together of things that we should probably rethink in education writ large. So, yeah, this is a very instructive episode. I'm very excited to share these conversations with you.
I'm really excited about this one. So I'm really excited. Again, how many times can I say that in one episode? I don't know.
It was a good
but I didn't cry. So that's good.
No crying this time.
This is a good episode. I am really excited to introduce to you Marisa E. Thompson. So fun story. I think like many educators that are active on social media, Twitter used to be much better than it is. So I was originally introduced to Marisa and her work with Unlimited Teacher on Twitter. And so to me, it was a very specific avatar. That's who, right? The picture, that's who Marisa Thompson was.
Right.
And we had corresponded multiple times, been at conferences together and things like that, but never met in person. So then, this January, we're in Palm Springs at the conference. We filmed an episode there. And they have this wonderful thing there that started during pandemic learning called Midnight Pedagogy.
Right.
Yeah. And so Ed Campos and a bunch of other people that I'm forgetting to say their names right now, they came together and they were like, you know what? They're like, this is crap. We need to support each other. Nobody knows how to do this. And so the people who have a little bit of a know-how, let's get together. And so like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, these educators would get together on Zoom, hang out, kind of commiserate, and be like, how the hell do I do this? And from that was Midnight Pedagogy. It was born. And so now that we're all back in person, whenever there's a big conference, they do Midnight Pedagogy. So this year in Palm Springs, it was super cool. The most giant pizzas I've ever witnessed. Okay, like for the people that are watching, they were bigger than these tables.
What?
Yeah. And so Ed Campos, I think it was Ed that brought them in. He came in with all these giant pizzas. They took up way more than the tables. We're all hanging out at like 11 o'clock by the pool, and just chatting and just being together as educators and enjoying it. And so I sat down and I was chatting. Had this really interesting conversation about somebody was going off on a writing retreat, which I do myself, and we were sharing stuff. And my friend Kim Vogie, who we need to have on,
Love Kim.
She's like, oh, isn't it fun to talk to Marisa? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, what's her name? She's like, that's Marisa Thompson. I'm like, I don't know who that is, because I'm kind of dumb. I'm kind of bad with names. And she goes, she's like, Marisa Thompson, like you guys are always talking together online. And so I had like on the slide, did like the embarrassing thing at the party where I like turned around and like got on Twitter real quick. And I'm like, oh, and I did. I fessed up to her and I'm like, oh my gosh. Like we've been talking for like a half an hour and I did not put your physical person together with your internet person.
That's amazing.
So she's incredible.
Yeah.
She has such a wealth of knowledge. And so Marisa Thompson, and I say Marisa E. Thompson because if you use that to find her, you'll find her.
Right.
So Marisa has almost 20 years of education experience. She's been a classroom teacher. She's been an instructional and an ed coach. She's worked at a district level. And as she's going to mention in the podcast, this is her first year not in a classroom, which is really hard.
That is a big move.
It's
for
really
an educator.
big, taking that step out of a classroom when for almost 20 years you've been day to day with students. But Marisa has, to say what she's known for is so long. She's incredible. She's so incredible. But Marisa really talks a lot about DIY flexible seating in a classroom. She talks about student-led learning. And she's the 2019 Q ISTE affiliate for San Diego, the winner of the Innovative Educator of the Year.
Wow,
Yeah, she's an award-winning educator on our
legit.
little podcast, right? She's also really known for something called the TQE method, which is really neat. It's a really neat way of using questioning to break down documents and things like that. And then a fun fact that I just found, she's visited over 20 countries and is a fan of See's candy. So
We'll have to send her some.
excellent. All right. So let's, you should also know that because we have known each other, we kind of just dove right into the conversation.
Didn't really
and so we're
introduce
just going to
too much.
start right out. So I give to you Marisa E. Thompson. We're lucky to know people that work with a lot of educators, kind of a wide scope. And so we were able to kind of pull on that network and have you come in. And so I would love to start us off. I'm curious, Marisa, during this past year, looking back on 2022, 23, what is like a rewarding moment that kind of bubbles up to you?
Wow. It's funny. Usually you want to get some of these questions ahead of time, but I like the authentic
Sorry.
reaction of that's a great question. Just figure it out. Honestly, so this is my first year out of the classroom, and it was a heart-wrenching decision. It's so much a part of my identity. I was in the classroom for almost half my life, right? And so I wanted to make sure that I was still able to fulfill my purpose, which is to help teachers help their students and themselves, right? I want that to be better for everyone. And so I get to work with my mentor, Laura Spencer, who you know through Q, and she's letting me play. So I would say the most meaningful, I can't do it, but one of. Right?
One of, yes, one of.
So
One of, not the most.
I will say is I was working with a teacher, and we talked for hours over a few weeks, and then we restructured all of her classes. And she's like, I have never been this purposeful in my thinking, my design, my planning. And the kids are just absolutely blowing all of their previous all of
metrics.
just out of the water. It is incredible, and the workload has decreased significantly. It's interesting. As we decrease that workload for students, they're able to focus, they're able to try, they're able to show that they can do it, right?
Yes.
And so I get to watch that. I get to really witness and be part of that shift for an entire school of teachers and students. So I've got a few on board. I've got a few more to go. But it's really working. It's really working. I'm convincing some people that, I hear sometimes it looks a little light. And it's just hang on. Just hang on.
That's okay.
Hang on 1 second. Wait till you see it. So that's been fun. But to have a teacher recognize and go, wow, I've never been this thoughtful and this deliberate, this intentional in my planning. And then to watch their work, both the students and the teachers' workload drop, and watch the celebrations come in. It's so much fun.
It's so rewarding. John Carippo was on a podcast a couple of years ago, and he mentioned that teacher burnout isn't only about lack of pay and all of these things. He's like, I feel like the root is a lack of feeling successful, right? And you're handing that over to these teachers that no, you're not broken. Yeah, I can teach you some cool tricks. Let's just get you feeling successful.
Yeah, and the kids too. right? The kids are
And the kids
constantly
too.
playing that catch up and constantly like, oh, I have a 0. Oh, I got a C on a quiz. Like they can feel successful. You can feel successful as a teacher. And then to have that collaboration of like, let's see what we can do together. It's so much fun. And that energy, that fun is to me, the antidote to teacher burnout. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Although we should get paid more. Can we just?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we still the fun is that antidote.
Yes.
I could not agree more. Yeah, there is this strange gap in pay that we definitely have to work through.
Mm-hmm. And we will.
You know. Oh, absolutely.
But in the meantime, we've got kids in front of us, and they've got we owe it. They deserve it. We have the ability and the knowledge and the expertise and the experience, and so we do what we need to do and what we can do with these kids. But it's oddly fascinating that one of those tricks is to bring down the workload for everybody.
To do less, and it's strange, isn't it? Like I'm a high school English teacher, and I always ask for feedback from the kids at the end of a semester. And I'll never forget when I was like, oh, what did you advance in the most this year? And about 80% of them all said essay writing. Wow. I'm like, that's interesting. How many essays did I assign? And they're like, well, there was, only one.
One, yeah.
One per semester. And they all report, the skills.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the same for me, especially during that year that I was virtual, the year I was online for COVID. It was my best growth in writing skills. I just, it's fascinating.
Isn't that funny?
I don't think a lot of people would report that.
Isn't it wild? And so, but I'm sitting there going, wait,
wild.
Hang on, time out. What was it? And I think a lot of it was that the quantity of work was decreased so significantly that they could actually have time and space to think and feel like they wanted to write, which is what we were talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that so much. I've had a very similar experience. I'm actually teaching a experimental dual enrolled high school and college class. So they get college credit and high school credit for that. And we did it in this weird format where we did a college class, but the whole year. So it was just super weird, and no one had ever really done anything like that. Even at the college, they were like, "I don't know, we can't really advise you. You make it up." So I'm like, "Okay, cool,
good,
perfect. That's the ideal situation for me."
Right.
So it was like, took so long to really like sit with material that was really far beyond their ability to understand, like essays that I read in grad school that I was like, I want to read this with you and see what we can get out of it, because it's really cool ideas in here. And like having that just extra time, not having them on, a spinning wheel of busy work or worksheets. It was just like, let's go deep on this one thing because I really want you to grow in this specific skill. And once all those things were connected, we could really just slow down. Like their writing just dramatically improved because they were able to level up. They had time to go deep and then scale up and see where they could scale up.
Right.
Instead of just like, what's the answer? I need to get this over with.
Right. I need to not have a 0. I need to, I have an 88.4. How much more do I need to do? And you're just like, come on, back.
I know.
Yeah.
But one of the interesting points of feedback I got was some of the students that took it, were very, very they're very good at school and they're very good at high school. Mm-hmm. And so they were like, I thought I'd be writing more, or I thought there would be this would be more rigorous. And I was like, it's very rigorous. You've just read Plato and Aristotle and stuff that people don't ever read unless you're in a grad program or that's your area of study.
102 or something.
Yeah, but it was like they had trouble correlating rigor with advancing skills. It was more like, oh, I'm not doing things all the time, so this must be easy.
Right. And what an odd feeling, right? Because it's definitely a criticism I hear, and something I have to combat a lot. But it's
Totally.
It's too light. We need to make it harder on them. And I'm just in there going
Right.
like,
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
understand. I don't understand this need of like,
I don't get it
how
either.
difficult we can make it for them. And that will mean that we're doing a good job. And it's just like, I don't, is anyone listening to anything that we're talking about? You know, why would we make it harder on, it's already hard. Writing is hard. Thinking and having these big thoughts and conversations about things that really matter, and then communicating a new thought, it's spoken and then in writing and having it come through clearly. That's freaking hard. Do we need to make it? Why does it need to be a punishment? This should be something that we want to do. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and totally. I heard joking, and I won't say where this came from. It was an AP teacher, and he was like, "Yeah, there's only been like 3 or 4 panic attacks. I must not be doing something right." I'm like, don't even make that joke.
Yeah.
Like,
it's so painful.
Yeah, I don't fully know what to do with that, but I
you do this.
It's the absurd, right?
That's a different way of looking at it. You know.
No, that's interesting. Yeah. I do think it's, I think we laugh at the absurdity of it. But the fact that it is true for a lot of people, or for the philosophy of you have to have this many assignments, you have to have this many grades, it has to be worth this amount. You have to, and I think there are those, I'm using air quotes, the solutions of having so many grades is really about communicating and being clear with the student and with the family about where they are. And I think there are other ways to solve that. I know there are other ways to solve that we've seen work and replicated in so many schools and so many classrooms. So I'm excited about, as heavy as all of this became in our conversation, I'm actually really excited that there's so many solutions available and that are easily implementable. They're actionable. You can do it tomorrow. And even within the system, we can fix it within the system so that where you run into that friction, you're gonna go like, no, I'm within the system. I got it. Until we can actually get all of that data, those examples and those observations, those stories from students and from families who are like, I used to be completely stressed out. I'm no longer stressed out. I see that I'm successful. I have the confidence to share my thoughts or ask a question or write a paper. I think I just have a real optimism about it. I have a lot of hope for it. And I think these are the conversations that we have that start to spark the thing in the next person and the next person. And we start to see those ripples.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think, it's acknowledging some thorns, but in the end, it's a rose because there is hope to it. Right. And it is something that you can like reframe within the system. And I love the way that John Carippo approaches that too. We mentioned, we love John around here.
Yeah. John. Yeah.
But that's like one of his things where he's just like, look at the data.
Right.
And like, look at the test scores.
Right.
1 year, look at the 30% difference or whatever. Like, once we get more and more and more of that data, can start to really, I think, lay the groundwork for actually changing the educational system, because it was never going to change overnight, ever. No. Like, it's always been resistance, and things have stayed the same for such a long time. But I agree with you. I think it's a very exciting time to be in education.
And I love John's data. I love it. I love seeing, but I love more, because I use the data too, because I need it to back it up, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
But I love what Jake said, and I did the same thing, Jake. Our final exam was analyzing the efficacy of our course and my teaching.
Awesome.
This is so cool. It was 2 full days. It was 4 hours, and I gave them, here's the list, like a spreadsheet of everything that we did. What do I keep? What do I toss? What is meaningful, but you need to fix this aspect or that. So they did that, and with lots of talking, lots of analysis, all the skills that we want. And then we had this big, I guess Socratic discussion, but I wouldn't call it a Socratic seminar. We all just sat around and talked about it. One of my favorite questions is, what did you get from our class that has nothing to do with English? And
Oh, I love that.
right, it's not about English. Yes, I need you to embed quotes and but I don't care. I care about you and your, so that's the student, the kids are talking, and then finally somebody, because that's a weird question, right? That's a personal question that becomes introspective and vulnerable very quickly. And this freshman, I can see her. She raises her hand and she goes, "I learned that I can."
Oh.
And all these little nods, and I let my assistant principal came for it because he was like, "I want to hear this discussion." I'm like, "You should come check it out." And we looked at each other, and I was like, "It's Christmas Day. Like that's we can go now."
Yeah, we're done.
Mic drop. We're done.
Bye, everybody. I'm out.
Good job.
But what a wonderful thing for a student to feel, as opposed to feeling bogged down or not enough yet, or my report card's coming out. So I love the data, but I love the stories from the students and from the families. It's the observational data for me that can't be conveyed in numbers, that I really think completes that argument, right? That people are going to be asking for those numbers, but it's the personal stories for me that really make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever feel like when a student says that, you're like, "Hang on, I want to get my phone. Can I record you?"
Oh my gosh, I say it in every single session that I do.
Can I
say that they come up with the most beautiful stuff. I learned that I can. I say it every time.
That's so good.
Another student said, "I get what you're doing now." She was my biggest critic. She tried so hard to get out of my class. She did. She fully did. But she came back after she went to another classroom. They had a big project they needed to do, pages and pages of instructions. And she went to the teacher afterwards and said, "I have an idea that I want to try." And he said, "No, your instructions are right here. I need you to do what I told you to do." And she made a beeline to my class, and I was like, "Hey, wrong class period, wrong day, I'll see you when, and she goes, "No, I just got out." And you can see she's like flabbergasted. She's got her papers, and I'm like, "Are you all right?" And she's like, "I get what you're doing now." Okay, what's going on? She goes, "Instructions are limitations." And I said, "Buddy, I'm going to say it every time I get the chance to say it." And so that's what we were doing. We started calling it instructionless teaching.
That is so sick.
Isn't it rad?
Writing that down.
Instructions are limitations. I freaking love it. That, and I learned that I can, and I was like, dude, I'm on to something here. And then to be able to share it and see that other teachers are able to use it, and that it's being used. Like I've got the fact that it's around the world really is mind-boggling to me, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn. It's just the fascination of social media and what it could do, it's amazing. And but it's being used from kindergarten through grad school in all sorts of subjects, and it's holy, I want to curse, but holy moly, right?
Yeah.
That there are some little things that we can shift immediately and start to see those glimpses of what's really possible. So it's so much fun.
And I feel like we're ready to see that shift happen. I think the bulk of teachers that are feeling healthy are seeing the other people aren't going to change this. So I'm going to do what I can in my classroom, regardless of what they say. There's this kind of grassrootsy thing. And what you're doing is so, it's so enlivening. It's so humanizing to these students. And then the teachers around the world, they see it. And of course they're going to glom onto it. Right? You're throwing a lifeline to people that is accessible. It works. It's done in kindness.
Right. It's free.
It's free.
It's not a program. It's not a tool. It's not. And I love that. I was thinking about it. I know I told you I'm in Texas, so I'm on the plane, and I'm thinking about all of these things because I'm obsessed with education. And I go, it just does feel like right now that teachers feel like they only have two options, right? They've got two doors. They've got door number one, which is to deal with it. This is what door number two is you quit and you become, I was going to become a corporate trainer because I hated teaching for the first 7 years.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, I was going to quit. I had applications out. I was going.
I'm amazed that you were in it for 7 years then, if that was
I
your
love the
suffering like
kids.
that.
I love the little
I
girl. I
know. I
loved
know.
it. But I mean, it's the
That's
same
what it
thing
is.
everybody says, right? Like, I love this. I don't love it. So your two choices are
Mhm.
deal with it. Door number one, deal with it. Door number two, quit. And then, but I don't believe that's true. I think really door number three is this. I think it's us going like, no, hang on. Let's get people together. Let's talk about this. Because I'm telling you, there's a way to do each of your major goals that you have for yourself and your kids. And so I think it's door number three. And
Yeah.
it's totally there, and there's so many options, behind that door.
I think it's door number 3.
Door number
Definitely door number 3. Take door number 3.
It's definitely the vacation and not like the whammy.
right. No whammy, no whammy. Right. Exactly.
No whammy, no whammy.
It's so true.
So for people that are listening and are into it and hear what you have to say, how do they find out more?
I have a blog. I have my unlimitedteacher.com blog. And then I do speaking gigs, and I'll go and do trainings and stuff, or we can do webinars, whatever. These courses that I'm recording, you can do one of the courses and learn about it there and get all the downloads and all those things. But
And are those going to be are those going to be posted on your website, or
yeah, you can sign up through you can sign up through the website. I'm on social media. I tend to be more active right now on Instagram, which is funny to me because it was always Twitter before.
Right.
But I'm on Instagram, but you got to throw the E in there. So Marisa E. Thompson. Marisa Thompson is just too, it's generic. You're going to get a lot of people, But it was Marisa Meinhardt was my maiden name. It was a lot easier, or just, if you do TQE, you'll find something for sure.
Yeah.
Or unlimitedteacher.com. Yeah. So no limits, guys. No limits.
No limits. Okay. So one final question for you. So you mentioned that there were things that you did like before the event, and then like during, pandemic learning. And I think a lot of us are starting to feel the light at the end of the tunnel is starting to show up. We're starting to feel more towards normal. I hate that word. So my question for you is, what is a habit that served us but no longer serves us in education?
Yeah, let it go.
And like we can start letting go of that. Just that.
You guys
just that.
Man.
Easy question.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah. Something that was serving us that's no longer serving us.
Yeah.
I think we tend to. I think it makes us feel better when we have something or someone to blame. I think we tend to complain, and usually there's blame involved in it. And I really think it's exhausting and it's not helpful. So I like complaining. I think actually complaints are really, really healthy. I think it tells us what it is that we're trying to fix. I think it helps us identify the next thing that we need to rethink, revamp. But I think the blame thing, we got to let it go, and because it's not serving us, like you said, like what's not serving us anymore. I think it made us feel better.
Yeah.
But I think now, knowing how the event, right? Knowing how we can adapt and how powerful we really are, and the fact how smart we are, and our willingness to share with each other, I think that's going to just totally negate any blame game. I think it helped in the moment, but I think once we realized how much we can really do together, I think that's what's going to serve us most. Yeah.
Awesome.
Perfect words.
Oh, yay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You passed.
Yeah.
How many points did I get? Did I break that 88? Did I get up there or what?
You definitely are graduating the dual enrollment course.
Oh yeah. Definitely. You get college credit.
Thank you. I'll take it.
What a great conversation.
Fantastic.
Marisa is just such a light, and I love what she had to say about the blame game, especially there at the end, where, you know, as educators, I think we have like one of the most intense struggles with imposter syndrome of any career, because your career is constantly changing. The population you're serving is constantly changing, and students are different today than they were even a few years ago. You know, like we mentioned the event, right?
Yeah.
Like post event,
The time which shall not be named.
everything is different now, and we want to find answers. I think we want to find what went wrong. We want to there needs to be something to blame. Oh, it was this. Oh, it was this. Oh, it was you. Oh, it was this. But that doesn't
Technology,
it doesn't
yeah.
serve us. It doesn't serve us to try to find those mistakes and like hang that on someone. It would serve us to acknowledge our own mistakes and not live in such a culture of fear around that, to where you can acknowledge what went wrong and share it with your colleagues and think of better solutions together. So as we move, you know, forward into this next conversation, keep that in mind. Because John's a very impassioned person, and he does like to
I love John.
He does like to call people out, and rightly so, but in a way that I think it comes from a place of love. John wants things to be better, and we could be better together if we weren't so resistant to that.
Oh yeah. Well, and I love, like, you know, we talk about finding a community of practice, and we forget that the word practice has that built in.
Yeah.
That it's not a community of, you know, a community of like excellence, or a community of, you know, perfection, or a community of even like execution, you know, like that we're doing it right. It's a community of practice. And it's so important. And in my experience, it can be really disarming to people when you own that mistake in front of them.
Yeah. Just
You know, like
that didn't work.
I let some balls drop so bad one time. It was my first year in the classroom, and we do this thing called Shady Creek, which is like an outdoor education school. So I was going to take, like, you know, almost 30 sixth graders to this outdoor ed school for a week, and it was, the communication was actually pretty bad coming from them, and the whole thing. I was just like, I'm gonna go head in the sand. I got too much to do. It's the spring. The school year's almost over. I'm dying here.
Yeah.
And so I let those balls drop. I didn't have permission slips. I didn't have chaperones and drivers. You know, it was like a 2-hour drive away. It was terrible. It was terrible. And I look back and I'm like, well, yeah, like I was drowning, right?
Right.
And I'll never forget, the vice principal came down to my classroom. And I was sitting at my desk, and she's really tall, which is kind of funny, because she sat down like next to my desk, like, can we talk? You know, that, like, I'm like, oh.
Right.
And I mean, I'm not somebody who minces words very well. I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
And she was like, so I got a phone call from Shady Creek that they're really frustrated that they don't have the paperwork that, you know. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I've been so bad at this. I'm drowning. I have not gotten the permission slips. You know, we sent in all of these things.
Right.
And she kind of
Just
looked for a
owned it.
second like, oh.
Right.
Oh. And like didn't know how to react.
Yeah.
I think she thought that I was going to be like, well, I don't know, it's not my fault. You know, like the blame game.
Right.
And so I love, like you said, Marisa goes to that, and like it doesn't serve us. And even looking back, I was able to be like, nope, I'm drowning. I need help.
Yeah.
And she offered it. And we had a wonderful time.
Wonderful.
And so, yeah, Marisa's great at,
Yeah.
you know, moving on, you know, letting go of those things that aren't serving us, which is hard. It's a reflexive practice. It requires us to say, I'm not good at something.
Yeah, that's a vulnerable
Or I
place.
screwed that up.
That's a very
in front
vulnerable
of,
place.
you know, for high schoolers, you know, how many hundreds of students, right?
Yeah.
It was bad. I ruined that for those kids.
Right.
But it's super important that we do that. And one of the things that I respect so much about John Carippo, who's our next guest, is he has such a strong bedrock foundation in his aims,
Totally.
his history, his pedagogy, what he wants for education, and he's done mincing words.
Oh, yeah.
He calls things right out.
Yep.
It's so great. And he's called me out. Oh, I'll never forget one of the first times I presented at a conference, and John's like, one of my heroes in education.
Sure.
And he was in the back watching. And afterwards he was like, can we talk about that? There were some good things, but the beginning was terrible. You've got to stop that. I'm like, oh my gosh, And John, you're listening. You did say that. Yeah. But what he did, he was like, nobody cares who you are. They want to know what you can do. And so I started right then, refining your practice. I stopped introducing myself at conferences and when I do consulting work and training, and we dive right into work, and I try to show people you are in good hands. And then maybe 10 minutes in, I'm like, okay, so who am I? I'm a classroom teacher. Let's move on, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, earn respect.
Earn respect instead of telling them, here are my credentials, and all of that stuff.
I feel like we have such a strange relationship with that too, just in education in general.
We do. Like, we literally...
I need to front so hard to be be taken seriously.
We live in an appeal to authority.
Yeah.
Which is so weird.
It is.
Like
it is.
Dr. So-and-so, the educator.
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool.